What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Immortal Minds. And I feel like every week we do this show, we begin the show with talking about how Sage just recently got nerfed again. So I guess the
Yeah,
tradition will continue for this show. But before we get into that, of course, we've got Sean here, and we've got Mike as well. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'd imagine Mike's also tired with me. We were grinding the unranked into the late hours of the night.
Yeah, Sean kept hitting me with the one more and one more and one more until it was like 2 a.m. for me. So
It's sick.
Mike
What
was
do you
getting
guys?
trolled by Sovo real hard last night.
every
Real.
game, different people, every sofa is just on gear. I don't know what it is.
But what were the servers doing? What was really happening?
They were literally like bottom fragging, but they would throw shock darts on like Mike in these
Ah,
clutch scenarios that were just absurd. And it was just amazing to watch. It was incredible sights.
awesome. Well, I'd love to hear more about that, but we can get started with the new patch that just came out. We have a patch 1.01, and as mentioned, barrier orb cast range has been reduced. So the thinking around this is the fact that they don't want Sage to be as aggressively useful in terms of taking control of space, like when you're running into a side, being able to just throw down a wall at a huge distance. And so the barrier orb has been reduced. Well, the range has been halved. So
Yeah.
she's supposed to be more defensive in this way. What do we think of this?
It's honestly pretty brutal. I don't know if you've had a chance to play with any sages and just watch them like, flounder somewhere trying to and then realize they can't reach where they're trying to wall and their wall ends up messed up. It's I obviously don't play Sage a lot, but I can see it in sages that I watch in the game. Like they're trying to say like wall off showers from like the bomb site box on bind and they just can't make it anymore, or like things that typically they would use to like take control of areas on executes or retakes, they can't do that as well anymore, and it makes it very difficult. It's quite a big nerf, actually. Like, I didn't think it would be until I watched them play. What do you think about it?
One thing that I think is interesting about it, I'm not 100% sure whether I like or not because there is this idea of she's been already nerfed quite a lot, and if you remove her offensive potential, it feels like I don't want it to be too clearly one-sided, if that makes sense. Like if she's only
Yeah.
legitimately good on one half, I don't think that would be particularly fun. But one thing it does make me think that's good is that you have to be more selective of your positioning defensively, which I think is interesting because it means that if you see a wall at a certain time, it means that you can more easily understand sort of the decisions that sage is making, like what spots she has to be standing in and what kind of decision trees she's going through. Whereas if she can just throw the wall down from basically any position on a site, then you have less of an idea as to like what she's doing in that way. And it sounds restrictive, but but to me, like that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to actually have some idea as to how to anticipate what my opponent might be doing, and they have hard choices to make. Um,
Mhm.
so players can be pretty creative in those spots. But yeah, ultimately, I'm not sure. I don't think that it needed a nerf. What do you think, Mike?
I think their whole goal right now is like Sage before could grasp all these areas that she didn't actually have control of. Like you could shoot slow orbs all the way across this map on bind from A site to B hookah. I think they're trying to prevent stuff like that. So it's kind of like, okay, if you're Sage and you want to take control of something, you have to be close to it, or you have to be like relatively close to it. So you can't just place a wall and then gain all that ground and clear out the corners. But it kind of makes me wonder if Brimstone, because he's like the opposite. You can control areas that are pretty far out because his map is very big. So I wonder
Mhm.
if he'll get a nerf like that in the future as well.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's to encourage him
what do you
to be
think
useful.
about, like, I liked that Sage was, like, super OP. She was really OP, but I kinda liked it because she was a very supportive character. It's very different having an OP character like Reyna, who's, like, very selfish and they're just thriving all by themselves. But Sage's abilities weren't really OP in the sense of, like, her getting all the kills. It was, like, helping the team out. So I was okay with her being OP. Does that make any sense? And, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because it's still up to the team to actually make plays around her abilities and tactical, tactical. Well, yeah, her tactical. What is the word I'm trying to find here? Potential. There we go. Her tactical
Yeah.
potential. So it's still up to the team to kind of capitalize around that, as opposed to outright giving the advantage and having it on the plate. And it's just there already ready to go. You still have to have teammates that can figure out their rotations and their timings and stuff. So I definitely agree with that. It's I do think what Mike was saying though is pretty much on the money in terms of Sage and how she's supposed to be used in the eyes of the developers. And it just makes me wonder if they're going to bring in another agent that we don't know about, because there can also be some unknown forces that are acting on some of these decisions. Whereas if they know that certain agents are going to come in that they have certain roles for, and they want to be more of the character of that particular new agent that's coming in, they're not going to want Sage stepping on that agent's shoes,
Yeah.
and similar things to that. So I think that's another thing as well that we can't quite understand, because I still don't know like how many agents are they going to add. It feels like it still could be another 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
I could see a world where that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could just keep adding them. So, do you think lowering the range of the barrier, does that decrease the skill ceiling on sages? Like if you were a super skilled sage player that put a lot of time into playing sage, don't you think it actually makes the skill ceiling higher if the cast range is further? Because then you have to be like really precise and like you can like do like exact lineups from far away. Or do you think it actually raises the skill ceiling now that it's shorter because you have to find creative ways to get your walls down?
I think yeah, I think it's about a higher skill ceiling in a sense, just because it feels as though you have to be able to. The whole point, I think, the way that I read it is that if you're going to put a wall down somewhere, it means that you have to be in control of that area first. Whereas it shouldn't be the case. Whereas we don't have control of this area, I'm going to put this wall down, and that's going to be part of us getting control of the area. I
Yeah.
think that's the difference between Sage before and Sage now in terms of what they did with this change. So in that sense, I think that you could argue that the skill ceiling of playing Sage is a bit higher because she's a bit more difficult. She doesn't have
Yeah.
that utility to just throw stuff down in that way, and you have to coordinate a team around yourself a little bit more, and that's not your job anymore. It's going to be the job of the Brimstone and the job of other like a breach, people that can get you into position, and then you come out and you have a wall that can be used a little bit later into that play. So I think that in that sense it as you say, like it does take something away from her, but at the same time, like I don't know if it decreases actually or increases the skill ceiling. I think it just changes
Yeah.
her role. I think is where I stand on it.
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence. I was gonna let you make up my mind for me, and you were convincing me in the beginning, and then you started to flop. So now I'm
Well, I guess unless there's any, if does anyone have anything else to say about Sage before we move on to a different topic?
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, okay. Well, okay. Actually, last thought about Sage. Do we feel like she's in a decent place, or do we feel like too much has been been done to her abilities?
I still feel like she's almost a requirement as an agent, but I still feel like too much has been done to her. Like I liked a supportive agent on the team where everyone on say like I'm playing a ranked or unranked game and everyone locks in an agent and then someone's like, "Shit, man, we need a sage." And someone picks the sage. Everyone's appreciative of the fact that we have a support player on our team, right? Whereas now if someone picks a sage, it's just like the opportunity cost of like say you're a Reyna main and like Reyna's open and Sage is open, now you'd probably lean towards Reyna, right? Because her abilities aren't that overpowering. So I liked having that supportive character in the game. I know that's weird coming from like a CS mindset, but I did enjoy that. And I'm always like appreciative of like super good sages that can heal people when they need to. They put up walls, they're rotating around, they're using slow orbs across the map. They're doing so much for the team. So I was fine with her being OP. Now it's like, should we even run a sage? Like you start getting into that realm and people aren't going to want to play her because I mean, it's not rewarding to play her at this point.
Yeah, I do wonder. I feel like she's at a point now where her changes will be more reflected in the strength of the rest of the cast as opposed to her specifically. Because it feels like they've pretty much they've nerfed everything and multiple times, and I don't see really how else, because now it's kind of it's very abundantly clear their philosophy behind the nerfs and what are trying to accomplish with them in terms of she is supposed to fit this role, her abilities now need to fall in line with this, so all of the nerfs are going to kind of do that. And I don't feel like there's anything else that will make a change unless the other cost gets so good that it's like the situation you see where the opportunity cost presents an argument whereby she's never like you just never want to pick her because her stuff's too weak. Then I guess maybe she'll get buffed. But
Yeah.
they did do a lot of stuff to improve the quality of life of the game. One thing I wanted to mention out of the recent changes they made was they actually they modified the callouts that are in the game to better match player terms on all of the maps, which I thought was pretty cool because in Counter Strike we've had player callouts kind of like area callouts, but they've just been like they're extremely. I don't even know where they came from. They're just extremely outdated.
Yeah, it's like Gretchen, quit trying to make fetch happen. Like, stop trying to make these the call outs, CS:GO devs. Like, why are you doing this to us? Just actually accept the ones that people use and put those in the game so that way new players are actually saying the right things, right? In an FPS game, communication is like one of the most important things. So teaching people how to properly communicate and call things is fantastic. Like, I actually think this is a huge update and quality of life update for playing ranked, right? When you want like there to be a high skill ceiling in ranked or matchmaking, you have to make sure people can communicate properly, right? Because communication is actually one of the key differences from watching like a top level pro team play and watching someone else play. And we'll get into this later with the whole like rivals thing because I know you did that. But listening to all the teams communicate, you can really like start to get a hierarchy of where the teams are on the pecking level, like for Valorant. And that's what was so sick with Twitch Rivals.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's going to be interesting to see sort of how that kind of philosophy continues to develop because it does make the game feel like a more interconnected kind of experience between the player, the developers, the competitive scene. Like there is this like I think that idea is really important because if you look at CS as again, for example, it's a very disjointed experience. The communities are more kind of divided in that way, from the casual competitive community to the actual professional community slash people that follow the esports, and just all of like the third party services, and you'll have different competitive groups that are similarly competitively motivated, but playing on different platforms and stuff, and it's all kind of disconnected. Whereas this game is going to have a really interconnected experience, like from the beginner level through matchmaking through to the professional level, because you're going to be using the same callouts, playing the same maps, playing the same mode, playing the same servers, and it's going to the esports will be visible to the casuals. So I think that's like an interesting idea. So it's cool that they're kind of thinking about the community in that way and trying to work off of the community. That's a good sign to me. Speaking of which, one of the big updates as well here was they updated Spike Rush a lot. They changed a lot of stuff with Spike Rush, and obviously I don't think there's really too much to talk about in terms of Spike Rush. But well, have you played it? Do you like it as a game mode? Are you having fun with it?
Dude, I've played 2 times so far. Once before the update, once after the update. Dude, have you gotten hit with the whole like decoy thing? Have you played
Oh,
Spike Rush?
I've played it, but I haven't seen the decoy thing.
Holy shit. So like there's some kind of like illusion thing that hits you, right? And it's like you've been hit with like a cipher tripwire all of a sudden, except you're hearing like fake footsteps everywhere and
Oh
you're hearing
wow.
like gunshots like in your ear. You're like, what's going on right now? It's very deceiving. It's not like a decoy in CS. It's the trippiest thing ever. I hate it actually. I think it's like such a silly ability. I'm not really too big of a fan of Spike Rush, but I can see how it's like a really sick casual environment. I mean, what do you think about it?
It's cool to get some if you have like 10 minutes, you want to get some more experience points. It's like I
Yeah.
guess. But it does make it does raise the question, what do we need to see? Because if they're willing to they're going to put in some funky game modes. Are we going to see KZ? Are we going to see deathmatch? What are we going to see? And I mean, if they have deathmatch at some point, that's pretty sick, because I wonder what they would do with it. If it would just be kind of very vanilla, or if they would create special maps for it, or that would look like. What do you think is the most necessary thing to see? Is deathmatch really necessary? Is training mode
Yeah.
enough?
I don't know, man. Like that's the thing is CS has really, really benefited from, having open code or whatever, so that way people can create all this stuff. It's not like the developers made all of this shit, like, these 128 tick deathmatch servers, like, what are all the other stuff in the surfing, KZ, Death Run, there's zombie mod, there's so many mods in CS that have been created by the community that I don't think almost anything Riot does can compete with that, right? They have tons of developers, but they don't have that kind of manpower, right? That the entire CS community has, and like the passion that has been built in this game over 20 years. But I think a deathmatch would be really sick if they add it to the game, right? Something to warm up with other players. But then it gets to the point where you're like, what about abilities, right? Abilities are a huge part of this game. And clearly, Riot wants you to use these abilities. They've made them cheap. They've made them so that way they carry over after rounds. So if they release a deathmatch without abilities, they're kind of going against what they want in the game. They're at a really hard spot. So they need to somehow, probably in their eyes, find a way to incorporate those abilities into deathmatch. And I just don't know how to do it. I haven't really thought about it. Do you have any ideas?
Um, I think, as you said, like I agree that you would probably want to see it without the abilities because otherwise it's like someone throwing a flashbang in deathmatch. Like no one's having fun with that. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I would imagine that abilities would be turned off for it. So maybe they would need to do some custom maps. I mean, it's really new territory in many respects because, as you say, Valve just they were very hands off. They allowed the community to kind of figure everything out, and then it's kind of like just a free market. The community has a bunch of options, and everyone gravitates towards one thing in particular because it's has a perception to be more valuable than the others, and that just grows and grows. And I do wonder though because they have this unique opportunity, which Valve decided to be really hands off. They could be really hands on. They could go for so many different approaches. If we look at what was successful as well as CS, we know that like the missions that exist from the God, what are they called now? The operations. Those are really
Mhm.
successful in driving engagement and driving people to like spend more time in the game and to have more fun with the game. Obviously, like for a lot of the competitive people, we don't like playing on anything apart from 128 tick, and some of the missions are pretty clunky. And obviously, Valve are not going to devote as much time into creating an operation as Valve would if they would decide to, because they've gone with the battle pass type format. So I wouldn't
Mhm.
be surprised if we see some kind of like missions that would actually allow you to incorporate abilities that could even be multiplayer potentially, which I don't think has been done before in a game like this. So there's an idea that they could do, or like with Overwatch where they would have specific co-op events, which are like PVE events. I think there was like this. Well, the first one they did was like a Halloween event. I don't know if you ever played any Overwatch, but it was like Junkrat. I forget what it was called, but Junkrat was like this Halloween boss, and it was like
Yeah.
loads of minions would come
I
at you and
remember. It
stuff.
was so sick. I
Yeah,
totally forgot about that, actually. That was so freaking sick.
it was
That's when I
super
used to
fun.
play
Yeah,
Overwatch. Yeah. Holy
yeah.
shit. That was a lot of fun. That'd be so sick if they add something like that to this game.
It was a great warm up too, because it's like you
Yeah.
actually had to be like well coordinated, and you actually had to aim. You actually
Yeah.
had to be able to
If
aim
you put
to
it on,
play it.
there was like modes you could put on, like hard mode, like blah, blah, blah. I think hard
Yeah.
mode was super difficult, if I remember correctly.
Dr. Junkenstein. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
the one.
Dr. Junkenstein. It's so
Yeah.
good.
So they could do that as well. Like there's all sorts of stuff that they could do. I was actually surprised that when they released the game, that I was surprised that that the matchmaking wasn't there. But I was also surprised not to see like something like this. Because I feel like that's got to be something that they could just. It would be such an easy win for them to do in the long term is to have like these kinds of little missions or episodes, things that are cooperative with people where you can use abilities and you can frag against bots or whatever in a kind of interesting mission. So but that said, they've only got 4 maps in the game, so I don't know like how hard it is to build maps in this game or anything about that. But either way,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of cool ideas that I hope to see in the future from Riot Games with this. Um, we should quickly mention quickly talk about the a couple of things with Twitch rivals. So I know I'm going slightly over time for this little segment. Um, So Twitch Rivals, did you like? Were you how much attention were you paying to it, Sean? Did you get to watch it in detail, or did you sort of I don't know, sort of see it at a glance?
So I didn't really watch much of the EU one. I tried to go back and like watch the Fish 1, 2, 3 ones a little bit, but it was hard for me to find like the VODs actually when I went back and looked. Like they didn't stream as much as the NA teams did, I'm pretty sure. So I went back and I watched like the NA finals VODs from like both teams just to hear their comms and like what was going on. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, I was really impressed with Myth. Like, I didn't know what to expect because I hadn't watched Myth, and I like watching him because I play Omen a lot and he plays Omen. So I was like, let me see like what he does. And I was super impressed by him because he didn't overextend. He calmed really well. He he basically never went out of his lane, like and he has very good aim. So that was really refreshing to watch, seeing someone come without any CS experience and perform on such a high level. Like I think Myth could be like technically incorporated into a Valorant Pro team pretty quickly, actually. Like he would have to have a team similar to those TSM guys that to kind of like show him the ropes of like how a CS team operates, but he's right there. Like he's pretty much at a very good level. That was like such a cool thing for me to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really it's actually it's something that I think is very hard to do without feeling too out of place. And like it's a situation where you have to play within your strengths and you have to be super on top of things with your team to so that they can understand specifically what they need to get out of you and that you have to be able to consistently deliver that. And as you say, like it's really hard to be in that position because it's really easy for you to for your intuition to tell you to make certain plays, but you're playing against a caliber of team or at a level that you're not used to in attack FPS, a game that you're again like also not used to at that level, and so your intuition is actually not going to be rewarding you that much because it's not trained
Yeah.
correctly yet. So you have to almost go against your intuition, and I think that's really different. It takes a lot of patience, I think, and a lot of nerve to play well like that. So I completely agree with you. I was really impressed by what Myth was able to do. Again, speaking of TSM, what I noticed was that they played a very CS kind of style. They had
Mhm.
no changes to their composition except as a reaction to Wardell becoming useless on Bind with Jets. And Wardell was kind of the centerpiece of the team, roaming around with an operator in pretty much every position. But Jet doesn't provide a lot of value on the attack on Bind. And it seemed as though he was kind of shut down with his aggressions on the defense, which is kind of where they win the game typically. So they switched to Sova, which I think was a really smart choice. But I think the question I'd have for you, Sean, is that um, they didn't really it felt like their composition wasn't really all that meaningful in terms of the tactical abilities that they could get out of it, but it just seemed like they were playing CS. Did you get kind of the same feeling?
Yeah, I kinda got the same feeling too when I watched T1 play. So both of those teams, I was like, they really aren't synergizing their abilities as well as I would like to see. But then, so I actually had lunch with Skadoodle like 2 days ago, and I talked to him a lot, and he's just like, "There's not that many teams to scrim against right now, and like practice what you want to do." Like T1 is actually practicing a lot. That's why you don't see them, streaming from like noon onward PST until like late at night. Is because they're actually practicing a lot at this point. But there's only like 3 or 4 teams to play against right now, right? Like at their level. It's the scene hasn't developed. It's very difficult to find scrims, book scrims, get them in a custom up. Like everything is very bare bones right now in the game. So what you're seeing is raw. And their communication broke down a lot on both teams because yeah, they're trying to play it like CS and these abilities would come in and they would just throw wrenches in like their entire plans. And it seemed like they weren't prepared enough, but I could understand that now after talking to Skadoodle. Definitely makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do we? So, with that said, do you feel like, as we just come to closing thoughts on this week, move on? Do you feel like it is just a case that there's just really not enough good practice, and you kind of have to play it safe, or do you feel like T1 was struggling a little bit? I feel like on paper we expected them versus a team with a stand-in to, even though it is a pretty good team,
Yeah.
we expected them to do better. Do you think how do you feel about that performance ultimately?
So yeah, I kind of thought they would do a little bit better as well until I saw Myth play, and I was like, oh shit, this team could actually beat them. Like I was very curious going into the finals if Myth team was actually going to be able to beat them. But then I realized, Hayes is actually the in-game leader for that TSM team, and he wasn't playing for them in the tournament. Myth took Hayes' spot. And then on the T1 side, what I found out was like their in-game leader situation is very hazy. All right. Like the comms were very hectic. It didn't seem like there was a lot of mid-game direction after the first couple seconds. And things really broke down a lot for them. Like I think they're the better players individually, but as far as teamwork goes, I was actually really impressed with what TSM was able to accomplish and like how they reacted. What do you think watching the two of them?
Yeah, I think they did well sticking to the basics. I think both teams were definitely trying to stick to the basics as much as they could and trying to make as few mistakes as they could. And obviously, that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but you could take a lot of risks doing stuff that has a big tactical payoff. But if you don't have enough experience and good practice behind those things, it's really hard to kind of weigh up the risk versus reward. And when it really feels obvious to kind of run those kinds of things, so you kind of want to play a style which is I think more what we saw, which is like let's just try to play as safe as possible, take as little risks as possible, and I think yeah, I was impressed by TSM. I kind of echo your thoughts there, but
So
with go
one
ahead.
one question. So I was watching like POVs from each team more so than like the mainstream. So like I was just kind of stuck to like one player most of the time just to hear the comms. The ciphers on both teams. So that would be like Crashies and I think Cutler. Cutler plays the cipher for TSM.
Yeah,
Were they like throwing cams in like the mid round and late round for because it didn't seem like their comms were like controlling as much as I thought a Cypher's comms should control a team, like at a pro level, right? So like for example, like if I'm playing Ascent and I leave a cam in middle on attack, basically like my if I tell my team like let's hit B, let's hit A, my cam lets me know if people are flanking, right? So that way I'm like, okay, no one's coming through market right now, no one's coming up cat, no one's flanking A, guys, just worry about heaven. Like or just worry about, people coming through like the short heaven entrance and the main heaven entrance. But both the ciphers in the like the individual streams I watched didn't really communicate and control in that type of manner. So like I don't really know what they were using their cams for. I think they were lurking more.
yeah, that's definitely what I noticed too. I didn't see the comms, but I assume that the comms and the cipher plays in the early to mid round would direct the play a little bit more. Is kind of how I was seeing it, but I didn't hear the POV. So
Mhm.
that's an interesting thought, though. I think that's going to be an evolution for sure. Understanding what is necessary behind certain agent picks in terms of comming and who is more valuable in terms of the information that they're able to get and deliver. And with that said, let's open the floor to the stream. What questions do you have for us, guys? Let's do the ask us anything now and hit us with some questions. I think there's like so much stuff to kind of discuss in this game. I think one additional point I think that Twitch Rivals brought up was that no one was playing Viper, but because it was all just mixed teams effectively, Viper's like the most advanced tactical agent. I wasn't too surprised not to see Viper.
Yeah. Yeah, Hiko plays a lot of Hyper now too. I don't know, man. I feel like I don't like the fact that like it's that regen when you go into like her toxin, like you get all your health back. It almost seems like it doesn't deter people from going inside of it. But I also feel like people aren't using her to her like full capabilities, right? Like the fact that Viper can just chill inside of her like little smoke, like her normal smoke. She can just chill inside of it and probably no one on the other team is going to come into it because they lose health. But if they did, you would definitely win that battle. Like 100%, you would probably win that battle if your Viper is sitting inside your own smoke. Like Vipers aren't really doing that. Every time I play against a Viper right now, they're just throwing these cheesy one ways that literally just stall you out. You're just like, oh, okay, that's a one way. I'm not going. That's all I'm seeing out of the Vipers right now. And then their walls are obviously those like pre-planned walls. Um, I I think that there could be like really cool plays you could do with Viper. Like there's a lot of intuitive thing, like on the fly stuff you could do with her, but not enough people are playing her to see that yet, which sucks. Like it's almost like she needs a buff to entice people to play her more.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I know that makes all things so that her ult is just terrible and needs changing. But we do actually have a question from Eamon from Caused. Um, asks if you could create a map for Valorant from CS:GO using two maps, what would you go for? The new map feels a lot like a Cache and Dust 2 mashup.
It's a good question. Maybe like train or something pretty open. I think that would be nice. I think Overpass has those like tight corridors, and it wouldn't feel as nice in a game like Valorant, right? Where smokes could literally just be really annoying to deal with. Like if I'm playing B on Overpass as Omen and I just get, infinite smokes throughout the round, you're not going to have a good time. You're going to feel like you have to run through one of my smokes, which isn't that difficult, but Overpass wouldn't be fun. I think it would have to be a map like Train that has multiple entrances to the same bomb site. It's difficult for CTs to hold if abilities are used properly. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a really funny one because I wonder so much how it would actually look if you had a Counter-Strike map in Valorant just one to one.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, like what would actually happen because it's the maps can't possibly play out similarly just because you don't have five people that can throw a brimstone smoke at the same time. So yeah, it's just like a really interesting prospect. So I do wonder
Yeah.
about that, but I for some reason the two most I guess like I can have like a sensible answer and a crazy answer. My crazy answer would be a mixture of Tuscan and Contra. I don't know if you remember Contra. Do you, do you remember that map from? It was like a
I
source map.
I do, and I think Tuscan was on my mind too, but I was trying to stick to like current CS maps. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first one I actually thought about. Tuscan would be so sick.
And Contra had like the undergrounds like system where it was like a one-way channel where you could rotate really fast one way, which is funny because it is kind of like a teleporter, but it just makes more noise and it's more of a commitment.
Yeah.
But that was like the funny thing is that that's an interesting way to modify rotation timings on really big maps. But like, there's no map in CS that actually did something like that was actually played like properly in competition for a long period
Yeah.
of time. So I always wondered about that because obviously that's what the teleporters do in Valorant. But I think a sensible answer, I would actually think having I was actually thinking along the same lines as I think Eamon suggested it, like Inferno A and Overpass P. I was thinking Inferno, Overpass, and Nuke would be three good ones, just because they're
Yeah.
all very very different, and they kind of provide a layout that seems I don't know what it is about the map layouts that seem a little bit basic in Valorant right now in comparison to some of the CS layouts where you have in CS you have more verticality. It feels like if you walk into the upper bomb site on Nuke, for example, there's nothing that exists like that in
Yeah.
Valorant. And equally the dynamics around like a more open bomb site and how verticality can be used. On Overpass, it feels like the B bomb site. If you compare that to, let's say, what's a good open bomb site with Heaven? I guess like on Haven on A or on Bind on A, you have similar dynamics, but I guess Bind is probably more so similar to Overpass
Yeah.
because it's more open, it's bigger, but it still feels like much more clunky.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
not
want like
sure.
1.6 train, dude, with like a
Oh yeah,
heaven, like a real heaven that we could go inside. That'd be dope. Want that?
yeah, yeah. That'd be really cool. Also, because like there would be spots where yeah, we could actually. I was just about to. I'm going to stop myself because we can kind of go on this train forever, and we have like
Yeah.
a few other questions.
Yeah.
So, Lucky DX asks, in my eyes, Omen is super underrated or not appreciated enough yet. He can give you 4 to 5 smokes in a round. Do you see him being picked up more in competitive Valorant?
Yeah, I think he's very good. Um, I can tell you that like as an Omen player, his smokes aren't that good, right? Yes, they are called smokes, but really they're just bubbles. You're throwing fucking bubbles. You're not throwing smokes. Like it's to say that jet smoke and brimstone smoke is the same as omen smoke, you'd be kind of lying to yourself, right? people are not afraid of coming into and coming out of Omen smokes because you get vision so quick, right? Like I honestly think when I'm in an Omen smoke and someone comes inside of it, it's a total 50-50 battle. Like it's maybe I have a slight advantage, like probably like 55 to 45 or something like that. But that battle, they see me very, very quickly. So the only time I think Omen smokes are really cool is when I'm playing against like a Breach or a Reyna. I can use my smoke to not get blind, which is really sick. Now, with that being said, like outside of his smokes, his flash is, in my opinion, let me think about this before I say it. Outside of Reyna's, in my opinion, Omen's flash is the best flash in the game. If he had two of them, you would really feel like he's OP as hell. Like I think Omen's flash is super underused right now because people still are remembering that like beta flash. This flash covers so much ground and you cannot dodge it. Like it literally wrecks people when you use it properly, which is something I've been trying to do. So I think Omen's very good in that manner. What do you think about his smokes though, as like someone that plays against him?
I think they're really interesting because I think that people don't quite know how to exploit them the best. Yeah. So because I kind of look at them and I feel like there's a lot to be done against them and ways to exploit them. But I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of great examples of people doing this. But I know that I know it exists. I know that it's something that can be very abusable. But again, it's just one of those things where in the general consciousness right now, there isn't this within the meta. There isn't this precedent set that if there's an omen smoke, I'm now thinking of these things. When people see an omen smoke, they're kind of thinking, "Oh, I can't go through that smoke," or "There's a lot of
Yeah.
risk," and they're treating it as a conventional kind of wall, right? Like in CS:GO, it took people quite a while to realize that a smoke is not a brick wall, and I think that there's almost that brick wall type of feeling with omen smokes. People are encouraged to walk into them a little bit more, obviously, because it is such a huge area. But you're always thinking, oh, there could be someone in this. So I think that there's something that will begin to be a lot more exploited than they are, and I'm really curious what that will look like. As a double-edged sword, because it means that right now he's stronger than in theory that he can be when people start to abuse that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna keep my eye on the situation as it develops in that way.
Yeah, like
Um,
when I throw smokes as Omen that are like deep for me to teleport into. Like sometimes I'll teleport into smokes to like gain ground, which is really sick with Omen. People will definitely go into the smokes that are closer to them that they know can't be inside. Like people will wait for me to teleport into them all the time. So like you could definitely play mind games with stuff like that, which is what I've started to do. Like if I know a guy's going to teleport into it, I'll teleport to the left of it and not be in the smoke. Like so there's definitely like a lot of layers to Omen gameplay for sure, but I don't know if you could just replace Brim with Omen or something like that.
right, yeah. Well, that's I think what is kind of interesting is that if we're talking about opportunity cost, you're in giving up Brimstone to take Omen, you do get some of the vision block from that Omen provides, but you get more of offensive potential out of him as an agent because of the teleport and so on. And and so I think that's interesting because if you're tooling up your lineup, your composition to be more of an offensive based composition, I feel like that makes sense. Like I'm liking the fact that that opportunity cost exists and that there's a good enough argument for Omen that he can kind of cross over a little bit to Brimstone's territory as a controller, which he's supposed to be doing as a controller. So I guess we'll see how they balance that to kind of bring it in line with the roles that they've put into the game. Um, that said, next question we will have. Let's see. Um, MLPPP, I think this is definitely an interesting question. He says, maybe you already talked about this, but Hika recently on stream talked about how it is very hard to counter the operator, that there is not enough utility. What are your thoughts on this? And I think it's
Yeah.
a funny question because at the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, the operator's not going to be very good because there's so many ways to deny vision. But
Yeah. I think I agree with what Hiko's saying when you're talking about like ranked games or like even unranked games. And early in this game right now, people don't know how to use utility. But I think once people start realizing that kind of stuff, it becomes very difficult to hold angles. So kind of going with what Hiko is saying, right? Like he's probably saying like, yeah, in hookah you could take an aggressive pick, and then you could fall back and then take the pick in hookah, and then once that's done, you could take the pick from like top site, and then once you're done with the top site pick, you can fall to back site, and you basically have like 4 different angles, right? Well, 2 of those are like immediately eliminated by using a drone or using the Roomba or using like a breach, like fault line through hookah. Yeah, like there's so many options. It's just people are lazy, right? People want to use their abilities to clear like the furthest possible thing or like do like the execute instead of doing like the dirty work with their abilities right now, right? But once people start to get the hang of the fact that, like someone on the team, which is typically what, like someone like Breach would be used for, or even my Omen Flash would clear out all of hookah, right? So that way we can get that shit for free. That negates all of those angles with the op. And then you just throw like 2 smokes on the site and it's over. Now, in ranked games, there's not that kind of synergy, and it feels like ops are OP, but it's not going to be that way in like when the team is actually cohesive, What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think, yeah, no, I just kind of echo your sentiments there, really, on that one. I think it's just gonna be. I think things are gonna start to move pretty quickly once we get more and more pro teams signed, and there's gonna be like people actually get to practice against each other and have proper tournaments. I think things are gonna start to evolve pretty quickly, and we'll start to like see a lot of this stuff come true. Um, so another question we can have time for 1 or 2 more. Got a couple minutes here. So Gil asks, what do you think about introducing more counter abilities, i.e., ability to put out Brimstone's Molotovs or Sage Orbs? That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure. This is a super interesting question because if this dynamic exists, I think it's a world where there's like a really expansive agent pool, and then but then the game really changes a lot because then I think that kind of theory, that idea that we laid down previously of having loads of agents and playing a draft. I think that's like one of the elements that would be you'd need in the game, and it'd be super interesting, like vetoes at that point.
I start to get scared that the game could like fall out of like this balanced situation we're in, and like there's gonna be all kind of crazy bugs. Like stuff like that caused a lot of chaos in CS for a little bit. Like smokes bouncing off of mall. Like I have a lot of like bad experiences with all of that stuff as like a pro player in CS. They still have problems with that shit to this day, where a piece of utility counters another piece of utility, right? Like I don't think they've nailed that yet in CS. So until someone proves to me that like that is reliable and it's not going to be an absolute mess, then I'm kind of against it. And to just know that when you have an ability, it's going to do exactly what it says it's going to do, and it can't be like countered. With that said, have you seen that Reina's eye can like take the hit from like a raise ult?
Oh, really? I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
it like
That's really
saves
funny.
you from the raise ult. So like shit like
Oh,
that exists in the game.
that's
So
so
I don't
interesting.
know. Like you can even throw like a cipher cage on top of Arena Eye. So that way like you can create one ways. Like it's an actual object, apparently.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
realize that. That's so
stuff
cool.
stuff like that exists in the game.
Man, the sky's really the limit. We actually have run out of time to answer questions. We need to move on to the next segment, but I wonder if we should even extend this segment in future episodes, just because it's a lot of fun getting questions from you guys and answering them. I always feel like we missed a few moving out of the segment, but regardless, today's focus in terms of the taking agency segment is going to be Mike's special agent Brimstone. Of course, he is the Brimstone specialist. He has reportedly only played one other agent in the entire maybe I don't know how many hundreds of hours he's got in Valorant already, but Mike, you've only played Brimstone, so you've got some clips for us to check out. Do you want to walk us through some stuff?
Yeah, so first off, we just have like all these are going to be compilations we'll have playing in the background. So I think stim beacons right now are pretty overrated in terms of like people don't understand fully how they work. So all of these, just watch the bottom right corner where it says like the combat stim with the blue, because it'll show you when you're refreshed in the stim. So stim beacons, they clip through walls, and from what I can tell on any map, they don't have any vertical limit. So you can throw it above you or below you, but as long as you're in the ring, you'll still get the effect. So all these I'm just showcasing, like a heaven on Haven, you can be anywhere
That's so sick.
in that ring. Same here with B on split. You're on that ring, you get the effect.
What the? That's insane. Actually, I didn't even know this.
I like this one a lot. But this, I guess this one is, I guess no, I guess it's still really good actually, because you can. How long does it last
Dude,
when
the one
you
on
go
split's
exit
sick.
when
When
you
you
exit the ring?
exit, it's like 5 seconds or so, like somewhere around there.
That's really good.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you don't even have to. People also just like stand in it the entire time, and it's like you don't have to. Like you can just leave, come back when it's about to fade, go back to the spot you're in, just keep playing different angles the entire time.
Dude, that's so insane. The one on Split and Haven, where like you could basically have Stim with a teammate at a very different angle. That's so OP. Like this one, and oh my god, that's so sick.
Yeah, like the one on B, I think is really good because you have a double crossfire, like one below on the side and one on Heaven Bauk if they come out B main, like without a sage wall or thing, and just be holding that angle together on different levels.
That's
Damn.
that's really cool. I thought Stim does feel like something that people don't really know how you get the value from it. So it's good to see little setups like this. And I think that's kind of the issue too. Like at the beginning of a game, there's not a huge amount of expectation as to like what's going to be happening, because everyone's just kind of figuring out how to play the game, and then the meta slowly starts to evolve. And then once you have an expectation, you'll like understand, okay, which one to use, what timings, what kind of rounds, and maybe we'll start to see people using the stim beacons a bit more. But I rarely see people using them. I never see. I think you're the only Brimstone mic that I've actually even played with that uses the beacons like this.
Yeah, and I think on attacking people, like especially if you're playing unrated right now, if you have a Brimstone and you're just gonna do the simple like 5-man try to take a site, why not just throw it at the start of the round? Like if you're just gonna rush a site 5-man, just drop it and you'll get the effect while you're entering the site.
Love it. Is there any other nerdy things we should know about the stim beacons, Mike?
No, that's about it, but it's just mostly like the clipping through walls and then the different
Mhm.
like height levels of it.
Do
Yeah, I
you,
didn't know the height thing.
what do you see as to being the best application, or the best use case for dropping a stim beacon? Is it better on the defense? Is it better with certain weapons? What are some of the use cases for it?
I don't think there's necessarily like a better weapon. Like Vandal and Phantom are both pretty good with it. I think it's more of just like hopefully in the future you'll see more like people doing actual like crossfires and subs with it instead of Brimstone just using it for themselves, which is mostly the case now. I think you'll start to
Mhm.
see like more people like this on defense. They'll have like some different angle where people can peek together or peek two different angles but have the effect. And it's kind of like even if one dies, you still have an advantage just with that faster fire rate if someone else peeks a different angle.
I feel like I'm gonna have to try to place some brim in the shooting range just to like figure out how the spray, how to like spray control differently with the increased attack fire rate. Is that something that like throws you off at all, having stood in
Mm,
stim beacons a lot more than me?
mm.
People talked about it a lot at the start of the game, but it doesn't like once you do it a few times, it isn't really that bad. Because if you're using this, it's not like you're trying to hold a super long range angle with a Phantom or Vandal. You're kind of like trying to take one of those mid to close range fights. So I don't think it's that
Oh,
much of an issue. The recoil reset.
that's the 200 IQ play in chat. How do you feel about faking a position with the beacon? I
Yeah,
would
that's
do
really
that all the
smart as
time, dude.
well. Like
I
I
would,
saw someone do that
yeah.
a few days ago, and it's just a great bait because people like instantly try to clear that area.
Yeah, they'll definitely hard clear the area where the stim beacon is.
Just another thing to note as well, if you're on the enemy team, or like if the enemy team throws down a stim beacon, you can stand in it and get the effect as well. So don't like be afraid to stand in their stim beacon and try to duel them with it.
We're gonna have to test this
Yeah.
out actually, like, because I feel I'm thinking to myself now, what are the also the opportunities on a pistol round? Like, how can a stim beacon help you on a pistol round? Is that because honestly, the pistols do feel like so random, honestly, right now. Um, Even more random than CS. I feel like sometimes you can be running with a ghost and just like one tap a lot of people, and sometimes you can stand still with the ghost and just nothing connects. It's just
Yeah.
feels very inconsistent.
Dude, you
Um,
just be a frenzy player.
Yeah, I was about to
Frenzy.
say
I was
frenzies with
about to.
that. Oh my god.
I was gonna say, yeah. I actually used the frenzy a lot right at the beginning of the game because of the
Yeah.
fact I didn't know how to use the abilities. I was like, screw it, I don't know what I'm doing with the abilities. I'll just get the armor and the frenzy, and it was actually really, really good. So, um,
I don't like
well,
how little damage it does. Like you have to like triple headshot people sometimes. It's rough.
it's pretty legit. I think we'll start seeing people using it more. But let's move on to the next nerdery that you got up to, Mike, in the lab with Brimstone. The Molotovs are next, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yep.
the mollies are, I think, obviously Brimstone has the best mollies in the game. So what are we seeing here?
So most of them always, since they don't really have a counter, I like to try to save them like for end of the round because you can stop a push or you can kill a planner or like kill someone trying to defuse. So that's what a lot of these are going to be, is like bomb plant positions that are pretty common, or like trying to kill a diffuser or something like that. This one right here I used with Sean yesterday, and
Oh
it
my god.
mollies a pocket and he pushed up and I ulted that back area, and then
And then I
he
just tellied while he ulted. It was so
Oh
sick,
wow.
actually, because you can't hear anything. Dude, these are sick.
Yeah, so a lot of these are just gonna be like lineups for like maybe you're in a farther back position, not near the bomb, but you can play it super safe because unless they come and kill you and then defuse, if there's a lot of time on the clock, there's nothing they can really do against it.
Dude, you die so quick in these mollies, by the way. I don't know if you've run into one lately, Dan.
Yeah.
One time I accidentally like was like, oh, I'll just like run through one. Like in CS, like I'll tank a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
It literally just kills you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah. No, that's why I said the best mollies in the game. they're,
They're
they're
insane.
they're very good. It's pretty crazy actually, because I think Brimstone is kind of slept on in many respects, because I don't know, people, again, it's just that same thing in CS. Like in CS, people didn't really understand how to use a utility. Like utility is super good and stuff like this, which can clear out entire positions. It has so many uses. I mean, which are all on display here. Early aggressions, retakes, clearing out certain positions on like whatever you want on the map. It can be thrown from so many different spots and angles, and it bounces, which even increases the amount of spots you can hit with it from various positions of safety. So
Yeah.
it's just fantastic, and that's like one thing about. And obviously, like Phoenix's Molotov is really awful. I mean, it's good enough that if you land it somewhere, someone will have to move,
Yeah.
but they can tank it if they want to for a little bit. Like
Dude,
it's also, it can't be thrown as far.
like imagine like that mic one that he threw on split, right? That goes in like that pushed A corner.
Mhm.
Imagine having like a Sage play like right next to him, and at the start of the round, she just pre-slows that,
Yeah,
and Mike
yeah,
Molly's that. That's like a kill. That's
yeah,
literally like an entry kill with two pieces of utility.
yeah. That's I do wonder, like, because
That's insane, actually. You could definitely do it.
I wonder how many setups there'll be. Like, is that something you can do in a pistol round? Like, if people are rushing A, are they going to get? Are there certain timings that you can find that are going to catch people? There's definitely like a lot of like super awesome stuff. Like, I love all of these the retake mollies as well, and that we're seeing here also, because retake utility is like super super strong in this game. To like retake a site with utility if you use it
Yeah.
correctly. And now people are starting to understand where people sit, like under the window here. That's an awesome molly there for a retake, because people always stand under that. So like, it's a very difficult position. It's kind of awkward to fight from it, but it's such an annoying position to deal with, because you have to. It's a sheer angle, pretty much no matter where you approach it from, except spawn. So it's really annoying. So yeah,
Dude.
loving this.
Fucking slows with these mollies are just frags. That's all they are. They're just insta frags.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really cool. Right. I don't know if I have anything else to add on the Molotov topic. Do you guys have anything else
No.
to throw in on this one?
No, those are really nice.
Yeah, these are really great lineups. So I'm sure like some people will be clipping to be able to steal these lineups. It's funny
Yeah.
actually because I think the first lineup in the game that I learned was the um this one. Do you remember we were
Oh
trying to
yeah,
figure this out, Sean? I was like
I
trying to
do
teach it to you.
remember. And I was like, dude, this Molly's trash. It just bounces everywhere.
It was hard to find that one, yeah.
It was very difficult.
I think the one
Right.
thing that's kind of unintuitive with Brimstone Smalley is just to add quick. It's kind of like these vertical ones where you're shooting really high up in the sky. They take a lot of time to bounce. They can bounce up to like 3 times depending on like what height and velocity they're going. So you kind of have to plan around that. I prefer ones that kind of like bounce off the side of a wall and then hit the ground because then they explode right away.
Can you do the Sova where like you know how like he can plant the bomb and shoot shock darts straight up in the air? Can you shoot your Molly straight up in the air?
Yeah,
Oh
actually
my
you can.
god, that's literally the worst thing I've ever heard.
How long does it take to kind of come down, bounce, and so on until it finally detonates? Because that's like the thing with the Sova ones is that they like disappear for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Is it
I
similar with
think
this?
if you shoot Brimstone's Molly, it comes down fairly quickly, but then it bounces like 3 or 4 times. So then they kind of get like a visual and audio indicator.
Awesome.
Jesus. That sounds awful.
Imagine though if you enter a game, right, and everybody on your team is playing like a Sage, a Viper, whatever, has at least like 10 lineups that can deal with retaking A, retaking B, aggressive A, aggressive mid, like just have like at least like one or two things lineups that they can use that can synergize with people. Like we're still not at
Yeah.
that level of play in the general consciousness again of the game. So there's like so much. Like the game just doesn't look anything like it will eventually, which is really interesting to me. But right, moving forward, do we have anything else? All right, we don't have anything else in terms of clips.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to move on to towards in terms of the discussion point, and we'll have like a couple discussion points before we close the show, is what is the best argument to have Brimstone in your composition? Like what is it all of the pieces of value that makes him feel essential? Does he feel essential?
He does. So I I used to be like on the fence about Brimstone because I was like, well, why do I need his smokes when I have my Omen smokes and I have 2 smokes? He has 3, like whatever. And same thing with like like a jet smoke. Well, jet smokes are a little bit buffed now, so they're nice. But the fact that Brimstone can drop 3 smokes at the same time gives you a lot of flexibility for executes, right? That's a huge selling point for that ability. It's not just that he has smokes, it's that he can execute on a site instantly all by himself, right? He doesn't need the help of other people. He can drop 3 smokes on a site like all at the same time, and that's a huge selling factor for Brimstone as a player. I think his ult is like a round winner when used correctly, right? Like if you're post plant and like a 1-on-2, 1-on-1, whatever, everyone's always all been in the situation where someone taps the bomb, the Brimstone ults, and then you have to like play the whole dance where you figure out where he is during that time, and you know that is like a round winner, right? The fact that he has that strong of an ult, the smokes are really strong, the molly is insanely strong when used properly. Once the stim beacon gets like solved, like the way Mike had like the multiple level thing, I think he's pretty much an essential character at that point when it comes to these like esport comps because he is the best as far as his utility goes.
Yeah, and there's definitely like a lot you can do with him. I found it interesting in terms of how he can synergize his smokes with other agents. Like for example, I think it was Sabrosa who was playing Brimstone on Bind for TSM, and one of
Yeah.
the things that he was doing was they were using Brimstone, and this is like goes the same logic applies to CS as well. Like they had Brimstone, it didn't feel like overwhelming how he was using his smokes, but it was just doing one job really, which was just trying to like prevent the lurk of crashies. He was lurking with Cypher around showers all the time. It's to basically
Yeah.
prevent any free control around showers. So it'd always be that showers smoke. But every so often he would walk through that smoke, and every so often, Sabrosa would walk through his own smoke with a Sova arrow just before it or something would land, or just before, or some kind of an ability that synergizes in some way, or
Yeah.
someone would like go through the teleporter, and then that would make any players out who are around that position look away just as Sabrosa comes through the smoke. And it's just small things like this. And I was thinking to myself, this is actually really cool because it just gives Brimstone a lot more that he can do by himself. And I feel like a lot of the value that people are thinking about is kind of what you're suggesting, like executing and so on and so forth. But there's like a lot that you can do with Brimstone just with team play. So some of the
Yeah.
weaknesses he may have can be kind of shored up in that way. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that play that you're talking about. I didn't like how Sabrosa used Brimstone on attack on bind. I think he was
Mhm.
like smoking front of hookah and then like just like dry peeking the angles, like to try to like
Yeah.
almost any other agent would be better at taking hookah than Brimstone. Like he should
Yeah.
not be doing that. It should be like breach, fault lining all of it, and blasting out the left, potentially clearing it with a flash, a Roomba going in, and then if you see a guy, you nade. Like there's like 8 other agents that are better at clearing out hookah than Brimstone. That's not to say like he's not valuable at going other places. Like Brimstone shouldn't be that guy that's like clearing out areas, right?
Yeah, I think that it
Like,
just goes to the point we made before where they were just kind of playing like a really basic comp and just kind of trying to
yeah.
make it, forcing it to make it work. Um, what are the arguments against Brimstone then, Sean? Like why would you not want him in your composition? What's the opportunity cost for you? Like, well, I'll take this dude instead of Brim.
Uh so I would definitely have like breach in my comp. I'd have a sage in my comp. I mean, you don't need Brim. That's the thing is like, I don't think he is like absolutely required, but he makes things very easy. Like if you have a good Brim, he makes things very easy. And also something like that we didn't talk about in the episode is Brim can also be used to like lurk and make plays. Like if I were playing Haven, for example, I could lurk the A site by like smoking mid banana, waiting for that smoke to fade, clearing out the end of banana, smoking like the top of like the A ramp towards the site. And you can basically lurk and you can smoke short, right? So you can smoke them both. So that's your 3 smokes. And you can hard lurk out of one of those smokes. Like it's very easy because there's only going to be like 1 or 2 people in the A site and they'd have to watch 4 different exits from the smokes: the left side of the short smoke, the right side of the short smoke, the left side of the long smoke, and the right side of the long smoke. So it creates a lot of openings as a lurker that I don't think he's been used as yet. Um, that is going to be really cool if I start seeing brims as lurkers.
Yeah, and I think the final point, which kind of just caps it off, and I think shows that he is pretty essential, perhaps more so than people think, is his ult is very very good. It's just a very good ultimate. You can combine it in lots of ways, as you mentioned with a Molotov, to maybe guarantee a kill or guarantee like a retake of certain important positions, like a mid on splits. That can be really good if the team's going really heavy mid control, or you can deny plants, or you can deny diffusers. Like it's just extremely good. So it does feel like he is pretty essential, even though I was asking the question about the use case against him. But it feels like he's pretty
Yeah.
essential. And with that said, I think we can introduce what will be the agent for the following week, which will be Raze. And I feel like Raze is in a pretty good spot, so I'm really interested to talk about Raze. I think she's really really useful. We actually saw Brax playing her on Binds, and that's actually quite interesting to me to see Brax playing Raze, because I felt when I saw that at first, I was like, Brax doesn't strike me as a Raze player necessarily. I don't know if I've misread that, so
Yeah.
that should be interesting to dive into.
Yeah, dude, she can do some crazy stuff with those satchels. I was playing the new map actually at night, like 2 nights ago, and I was playing with my friend, and he was trying to get like a raise clip, and the raise on the other team satcheled inside the B site on ascent, came through like up into the window inside the B site, ulted and shot it down into B main right at the start of the round and got a quad kill. It was insane. I
Nice.
couldn't even believe it. Like I was just like, well, that's my round. I'm out. It was so sick. There's so many possibilities with Raze because of those satchels.
Yeah, I feel like she's actually an awesome agent, and she's gonna be super cool to talk about. So that's what you have to look forward to next week. Remember, you can send us some clips. We'll make a nice little community clip segment if we get a bunch of clips from you guys. Hashtag Immortal Minds on Twitter so we can find them, and tag myself, Sean, and Mike in there as well. But that brings us to a close for today's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you joined late and you missed the early discussions, the Ask Us Anything and the news segment and so on, then make sure to catch the VOD, which will be live on our YouTube tomorrow at around 10:30 a.m. PT. But with that said, I don't think there's anything else to add, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and week. And that's all from myself, Sean, and Mike. Until next time, see you later.
Peace out.